Opening credits. Funny cat stories. True tales of funny cat experiences. Written by Leroy Vincent. Narrated by Monica Wappel.
Story 1. As a teenager, my daughter brought home what looked like a drowned rat. It was an abandoned kitten, eyes barely open, left alongside the road to die. My daughter says, "Mom, can we keep her for a few days until I can find a home for her?" I replied, "Yes, for a few days." 8,760 plus days later, 24 years, we had to have Melody. Of course, my daughter named her right away, put down. We always laugh about keeping Melody for a few days when we remember her. Story number 2. I used to live with my cat and several roommates. I had an ongoing problem in which my pens and pencils would disappear. I would go out and buy a pack of pens, put them in my pen cup on my desk, and they would disappear over the next few days. I thought surely my roommates were stealing them. I confronted them, asked about them. They all denied having taken them. I assumed they were lying and silently judged them. When it came time to move, we moved my nightstand. My cat immediately jumped at us, trying to get away from the nightstand, meowing loudly and battling at us. Once the nightstand was moved, we saw underneath a large stash of pens and pencils, probably 30 or so of each. He'd been systematically pilfering them and stashing them. I felt so bad that I had ever suspected my roommates. Story number 3. My cat is about 14 years old. She is fat and lazy, except when I'm at work. We live on the second floor of a house owned by my boyfriend's parents. There is a door at the top and bottom of the staircase between the two levels. They are both normally closed but not locked. The cat decided she wanted to go downstairs. She rammed into both doors until they opened enough for her to get her paw into the gaps and open them. She ran past my boyfriend's mother, scaring her. She ended up getting caught behind the hot water heater and had to be chased upstairs. For a lazy cat, she managed to get herself into a little bit of trouble.
Story 4. Rosie didn't take a lot of notice of my poor foot, but she was happy to have the company the whole day, other than Mr. G. It had rained the whole week, and despite the fact that she went out mouse hunting and came back wet like a sponge, the mice must have decided not to go out in the rain, so no mouse corpse this week. Story 5. My cat likes to try to get the dog to play. Its new thing is puffy tail, hair all on end, walking sideways past the dog as fast as she can. If the dog does not respond, it turns to bat the dog on the nose and then run away. She's so funny. Story 6. One Christmas Eve night, I had laid a trail of candy from my child's bed all the way to her Christmas toys that Santa had left. My rather lazy cat apparently thought this trail of candy was laid out for him, because all night long he baited the candy all through the house and played with all of it for hours and hours. I had to make a new candy trail early that morning before my child woke up and put the cat in a closed room. Story 7. For some reason, when he needs some comfort, he will carry around my child's stuffed animals all through the house. He started doing this when my child was a baby, and I would walk around the house singing to her when she wouldn't sleep. My cat would get a stuffed animal and follow me around with it in its mouth, meowing. He also did it when we would leave the house. We would come home to a variety of stuffed animals lying all through the house in every room. Story 8. It is not strictly true to say that all cats dislike water, or more accurately, swimming or bathing in water. Many of the big cats, for example, tigers, lions, jaguars, ocelots, and jaguarundi, the weasel cat, that frequent hot climates are particularly partial to a dip in a pond, stream, or river. Cats are natural swimmers in the wild, and Asian varieties have been known to fish in rivers and lakes. Cats bred near Lake Van in Turkey are raised around the water. The breed, the Turkish Van, has an affinity for water and really likes to swim. An old breed, this cat has been a household pet for centuries. Its water prowess is well known in Turkey, where they have been known to swim into the harbor to greet the arriving fishing boats. However, cats from colder regions avoid water as much as possible. Snow leopards, lynx, bobcats, and cougars, for example, have little interest in getting wet. It has been said that if a cat has wet fur, it can damage the ability of the cat's fur to insulate the animal against the cold. Most domestic cats, however, dislike getting wet. They do not enjoy water sports, and if bathed, become upset. The emphasis here is on most cats because some domestic animals will tolerate water if they are accustomed to bathing or showering. Story 9. My cat falls asleep as if he's dead. You can lift up his paws, his head, anything, and it just flops right back down. He often chooses poor places to fall asleep. One night I was watching television and he was sleeping on the back of the couch. He reached dead sleep and rolled down the back of the couch onto the cushion, got up, and moved behind me so that he couldn't roll off again. The following night, I'm watching television with the family, and we just hear a thump in the kitchen. He had fallen off the shelf he likes to sit on. The shelf is slightly higher than the kitchen table. The cat has also fallen asleep on the edge of his water dish. His head flopped into the dish, his nose just above the waterline. Each time he is dead weight and flops on the ground or falls from somewhere, he begins crying as if he's a small child. He wanders around disoriented through the house until he finds me. I must then find his blanket and pick him up and sit with him to calm him down. He is a very strange, childlike cat. Story 10. My great-aunt requested a portrait of Jesus for Christmas one year. She's 87, give her a break. So I found her a nice one and leaned it up against a wall in my living room, intending to come back and wrap it later. A while later I heard a weird scraping sound. I go into the room and my cat has the edge of the picture frame in her mouth and was slowly dragging it across the room. I yell, "Hey!" and she dropped it and ran like hell. I smelled something funny when I was getting ready for work one day. I followed the smell to the kitchen, where I found that my cat had turned on my gas stove and was standing over the burner, huffing the fumes. Needless to say, I was forced to remove the knobs from my stove and only put them on when I need to use it. Story 12. Our cats are funny when they imitate our words. From a cat that says, "out," while standing by the door, to saying, "Mama," to ask for food. Here is a story where my cat knew exactly what she was saying and what it means. I currently have 2 cats. A few months ago, I had to take my cats in for their yearly vaccinations. I took them in one at a time since one of them is difficult to catch, and she won't go into the carrier willingly like the other. When I took the first cat in, I got a Xanax for the second to make catching her easier. So I gave her the Xanax, waited for the time for it to take effect, and it did indeed make it a lot easier to catch her. To shorten the story, they had to keep her overnight to clean her teeth. When I came back the next day to pick her up, I asked her, "Baby girl, are you okay?" And clear as day, in front of the assistant, she said very loudly, "No!" with an attitude. It made both of us laugh. She forgave me later that night when she had time to know everything was back to normal, but I will never forget that. Story 12. Our cats are funny when they imitate our words. From a cat that says, "out," while standing by the door, to saying, "Mama," to ask for food. Here is a story where my cat knew exactly what she was saying and what it means. I currently have 2 cats. A few months ago, I had to take my cats in for their yearly vaccinations. I took them in one at a time since one of them is difficult to catch, and she won't go into the carrier willingly like the other. When I took the first cat in, I got a Xanax for the second to make catching her easier. So I gave her the Xanax, waited for the time for it to take effect, and it did indeed make it a lot easier to catch her. To shorten the story, they had to keep her overnight to clean her teeth. When I came back the next day to pick her up, I asked her, "Baby girl, are you okay?" And clear as day, in front of the assistant, she said very loudly, "No!" with an attitude. It made both of us laugh. She forgave me later that night when she had time to know everything was back to normal, but I will never forget that. Story 13. I feel like this is a super common problem with any cat owner, but it's still a golden story to tell. One time my cat ate an entire container of dental floss and I wasn't aware. Little while later, my cat comes strolling out of the poo box with a foot of floss hanging out of her cheeks. My mom ended up stepping on the floss and my cat continued to roam around the house until the floss was all out. It was hilarious. Story 14. The truth is that a cat in Santa Clara, California, really did discover how to flush the toilet. We know that the name of this cat is Gizmo, and he belongs to Nick and Scarlett. Gizmo was mesmerized by the sound of the toilet flushing, and somehow discovered for himself how to operate the lever. Scarlett discovered Gizmo's habit by accident. One afternoon, Scarlett was, as far as she knew, alone in the house. Then the toilet flushed, seemingly of its own accord. When Scarlett discreetly investigated, she discovered that it was Gizmo who was discharging the cistern. Knowing that few would believe her, she taped a segment of the problem for posterity. Story 15. My cat passed away several months ago, but he was a very grumpy yet funny cat. He was the same color as Garfield, and reminded me of the Garfield laying around waiting for lasagna. He was very large, approximately 40 pounds. He was more of a guard dog than any dog. My sister once stopped by unannounced and uninvited when we were not home. She had a key and tried to make entry to the house, but she could not because of my cat Bailey. She called me in a panic while outside the house, detailing her attempt to get in. Bailey guarded the door and would not allow her to enter. It was hilarious that someone would be afraid of a cat and that a cat would be such a good guard dog. It really put truth in the signs I have seen. Attack cat on duty. My sister has never tried to stop by like that again. Bailey's size also caused a lot of humor. He once got stuck in his cat tree. He tried to climb to the top, but his rear end got stuck in one of the holes. He caused the cat tree to collapse and wiggled until he broke free, only to screech away as if the tree had done something to him. Story 16. Max was my cat in college. He was a stray kitten I took in around this time of year, the beginning of December. As such, there was plenty of Christmas candy about. My favorite were the Hershey's Kisses. After eating one, I would ball up the foil and toss it toward the trash can. If I missed, Max would chase them and bring them back to me. Thus began his life of playing fetch with me. Those first few months, he liked to play fetch at night as I was going to bed. Every morning, I woke up with a little foil ball on my pillow next to my head where he had stopped playing when I finally had fallen to sleep. Story 17. I have 2 cats. One is a tabby mix and the other is a black Siamese. My cats' names are Kit Kat and Spooky, and they are the craziest cats I've ever had, but in a good way. I have a cat tower in my room that they both like to climb up and sleep in. They have random bursts of energy when they play, and always end up running back and forth in my room to my bathroom and back into my room. Sometimes they take it up the tower as well when they play with one another. One time, Kit Kat and Spooky were running around and playing, and they both ran up the cat tower. Spooky made it up to the top first and claimed the top as her own. Kit Kat hopped down. Spooky then hopped down and they started wrestling and ran around and up the tower again. But this time, Kit Kat wanted to reach the top first, and she attempted to hop into the top of the tower, missed, and fell. She didn't get hurt, but it was funny to watch them run after each other and lose balance and fall from the cat tower. Story 18. One day when I came home from work, our 2 kitties, Rascal and Romeo, were on top of the roof of the house. They had learned to climb a ladder up to the roof. They both were meowing because they wanted to get down and didn't know how to do it. I convinced Romeo to jump to a nearby tree, and he was able to get down. Rascal, however, would not jump to the tree, so I climbed up the ladder and got Rascal. He decided that he wouldn't stay in my arms and climbed up on my shoulders. This made it difficult to keep my balance. Meanwhile, Romeo decided that he would climb up the ladder, so I couldn't do anything because Romeo was on the rung below me. Eventually he got down. Rascal and I were able to safely get down the ladder. Thinking of the experience makes me smile. Story 19. My son and my cat seemed to like to try to sneak up on each other while playing. Well, the cat decided he would be stealthy and sneak up on my son one day while he was in the bathtub. She climbed very carefully on the toilet seat and went to jump to where my son was, and fell in the tub full of water. I have never seen that cat jump so high, and out the bathroom she went. Every time my son now goes to take a bath, she watches from the door with a stink-eye look. Story 20. Last week over the holiday, my entire family was sitting at the dining room table eating lunch. We had a typical holiday meal of turkey, potatoes, gravy, vegetables, and dessert. Meanwhile, we were all unaware that in the kitchen, my cat was doing something absolutely funny. My cat, whose name is Axel, after Axl Rose the singer, was sitting on the counter and eating a meal of his own. As my wife turned the corner to get some more gravy for the mashed potatoes, she saw my cat leap off the countertop and run down into the basement. Unfortunately for us, the gravy has all been eaten by Axel. For the next few hours, Axel spent time in the basement, and my entire family laughed about the experience. I wondered if the gravy would make him sick, and my grandpa wondered if the gravy would make him fill up his litter box. In the end, Axel did not get sick, and his litter box did not fill up. I am sure, however, that this funny cat story will stick with my family at family gatherings for years and generations to come. Story 21. One day I was in the kitchen when I heard a scratching noise coming from somewhere. I searched around and opened the pantry. Our cat, Miss Bite, was right behind me because that's where we keep the tuna. Miss Bite loves her tuna. So she was watching and waiting while I shifted things around in there. The noise seemed to be coming from a large bag of brown rice. As soon as I had moved it, something came flying out over my shoulder. I turned around, and there was Miss Bite, with the back half of a mouse sticking out of her mouth. She must have caught it instinctively. Her expression was a mixture of shock and embarrassment. She quickly ran off as if she needed to spit it out discreetly, although I suspect she ate it. From then on, she seemed to be watching the pantry for rodent manna from above, as well as the possibility of a can opener being applied to a can of tuna. Alas, the once-in-a-lifetime shot was never repeated, although we laughed about it often, and I put all my staples in plastic containers after that, so we both learned to be prepared. Story 22. My cat is not very good at cleaning himself, and it often leads to some problems. The day before company was supposed to come over, I had spent the entire day cleaning. We would be coming straight from work to my house. I had been telling them how I recently got a cat that I love, and it is the most behaved cat ever. When we arrived, I could smell something awful right away. My cat is a long hair and has a very bushy tail that he doesn't know how to keep away from the floor of his litter box. This leads him to have a lot of accidents on his tail. He managed to get a piece of his poop in his tail. This wouldn't be too bad if my cat didn't like to rub his tail on everything. My house was a mess, as was my cat. There was cat poop all over my walls in the bathroom, hallway, and on my floors. I had to leave my company sitting in the living room, alone, while I cleaned up my cat and his stinky wall art. You have been listening to Funny Cat Stories, True Tales of Funny Cat Experiences by Leroy Vincent. Narrated by Monica Wappel. Yeah, I have one to beat all others. My 12-year-old cat Eli has absolutely no manners. How do I say this? Well, when Eli has an urge that no matter when it hits and who's here, he feels the compulsion to fulfill. Okay, see, even trying to explain it is embarrassing, so I'm just going to lay it all out there in black and white. Eli masturbates. Yes, he does. If the compulsion hits, he will go at it when company's here. It doesn't matter, audience or not, if there's a soft blanket or nice, cuddly, furry stuffed animal, and the moment is right, away he goes. At times when this has happened, I have tried to just completely ignore it, but it never fails. Someone will ask, "What is that cat doing?" I have tried to explain. Don't pay attention, he's just having a mild seizure. But they usually figure out what's going on. The audience, that is, and then they just all stare and try to move on from what just happened is nearly impossible. It's really quite disconcerting, to say the least, if not the absolutely most embarrassing thing I've experienced. Yeah, I should get the prize just for being strong and admitting my cat's secret here to you. Other books by Leroy Vincent. Finding Your Match. Fun Dog Days. Fun Dog Days Coloring Book. Funny Cat Stories. Heartbreak Hotel. Hilarious Children. Romance Regrets. Christmas Coloring Pages. Mystic Elves Coloring Pages. Closing Credits. This has been Funny Cat Stories, True Tales of Funny Cat Experiences. Written by Leroy Vincent. Narrated by Monica Wappel. Copyright 2017 by Leroy Vincent. Production copyright by Revival Waves of Glory Books and Publishing. Opening credits. Funny Cat Stories. True Tales of Funny Cat Experiences. Written by Leroy Vincent. Narrated by Monica Wappel.
Story 1. As a teenager, my daughter brought home what looked like a drowned rat. It was an abandoned kitten, eyes barely open, left alongside the road to die. My daughter says, "Mom, can we keep her for a few days until I can find a home for her?" I replied, "Yes, for a few days." 8,760 plus days later, 24 years, we had to have Melody. Of course, my daughter named her right away, put down. We always laugh about keeping Melody for a few days when we remember her. Story number 2.